In this demonstration, I'll show you how to use the Update Document Properties step inside a K2 workflow in order to update the properties of a document that resides in a SharePoint library. Some examples where this workflow step comes in handy are processes built to handle corporate policy creation and update requests, or you might use it in a terms of service or legal document approval process. Basically, any process that has a requirement to change any of the SharePoint properties of a document, including a requirement that maybe renames the file, could use this step. Let's take a look at the beginnings of a corporate policy approval process that demonstrates this capability. So here I have a SharePoint library called Proposed Corporate Policies that will handle requests to create new or update current corporate policies. For example, employee conduct or time and attendance policies for an organization. To save some time and get right down to looking at the Update Document Properties step, I've already configured the basics of this workflow to begin manually when I'm ready to start it from the List Items menu. I want the first step to update the status property for this document with a value of Submitted. This will indicate to the user that the workflow has begun. So let's go ahead and drop the Update Property step onto the blank slot on the design canvas. You can find this wizard in the Documents menu group under the Workflow Steps tab in the ribbon menu at the top of the page. The first window you'll see is called Specified Document. Notice here K2 automatically assumes that you want to update the properties of the recently added document in your list by selecting that option and setting the document drop-down list to its item reference by default. Also keep in mind we have another step called Get Document Reference that you can use in a previous step in your workflow to create a reusable reference to another document. If we did that here, you would see that document's reference listed as an option in this document drop-down list as well. You can also select the Browse to Document option on this window. When you select this option, the wizard will ask you to first select the site collection that this document lives in. Then it will ask you for a specific library. You may need to create that library smart object and configure it for use in workflows if you don't see it in this list. The next screen will ask you to provide some filter values to determine which document or documents to update in this step. However, for this demo, I know I want to update the status property of the document that was added and is already referenced here. So I'm just going to back up from here and set the Use a Document that is referenced in this workflow setting, since the status property of that document is what I want to update. On the next window, you can see that all the columns or properties from the document library are available here. I'll go ahead and enter in the word Submitted in the status text box. If you have a need, you can also rename the file here by changing the name property, but be aware when you do this that links to this document in other pages could be broken after the change. So from here, I'll finish up. And now I'll go ahead and deploy the workflow so that it is attached to this list, and then we'll go see it in action. Okay, so I flipped back over to the Proposed Corporate Policies library. I'll just go ahead and add an updated time and attendance policy document for my organization. I have it on my desktop here, so I'll select it, and now I'll add in some info for the title and description columns. I'm going to leave the status field empty here because we want the workflow to update that while it's running. I'll save it out, and then we'll go back to the library. From here I want to start the workflow manually, so I'll open up the Item menu for this document, and I'll select the K2 workflow options. And then from in this window, I'll just manually start the workflow. And after a few seconds, it should take me back to the policy library where we can look at the status column. Good, now we should see the status column updated with the word Submitted. This indicates that the workflow ran successfully and updated the document status property with the configured Update Document Properties step. And before I end the demo here, one last thing I'd like to point out is the value of the Modified By column on the screen now. Notice it is set to SharePoint App. Since we ran the Update Document Properties workflow step as the K2 Server service account, I won't go into the configuration at this point, but know that you have the ability to change the credentials that run a step in your workflow, and in this case, the Modified By column will update with those credentials if you do decide to change it. We would like to thank you for watching this demo on how to use the Update Document Properties wizard. We hope you have a better understanding of how and when you can use this workflow step within processes used by your organization.